While mainstream cable news networks continue to pump out endless will they or won't they reports about Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush and the 2016 presidential race, well, all of that's going on in the foreground. In the background, the Republicans institutionally are hard at work trying to make it even harder for Americans to vote. As reported on over in the New York Times over the weekend, the first few months of 2014 have seen a huge upswing in GOP voter suppression efforts. In recent weeks, Ohio has cut back on early voting. They've eliminated same-day registration altogether. While Wisconsin, run by another potential 2016 frontrunner, Scott Walker, is on the cusp of cutting early voting as well. Republicans, it seems, are heeding the advice of ALEC and Heritage Foundation co-founder Paul Weyrich, who way back in 1980, when he was running the Reagan campaign, or helping run it, told a crowd of conservative activists in a Texas church that their success in elections goes up as voter turnout goes down.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Joining me now for more on this from New York is Thomas Ferguson, professor of political science at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and senior fellow at the Roosevelt Institute. Thomas Ferguson, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So I'm guessing it's not a coincidence that the two most glaring examples of voter Republican suppression this year have taken place in swing states?
I lost your audio there.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm guessing you're going to suggest Wisconsin and North Carolina, but
yeah, I was.
North Carolina was last year. I think Ohio was probably this year. So.
Yeah, Wisconsin and Ohio seem to be where it's happening, and they're swing states. I was just suggesting that's not a coincidence.
Oh no! Look, look. Let me just begin here. I'm quite fascinated by the quote from Weyrich that you just opened with. In the very first essay I ever published as a political scientist, I quoted that essay. You're suddenly making me feel like an Egyptian pharaoh or something like that, almost ancient history. I'm quite amazed that there's actually an audio tape of that. But yeah, some things don't change, and one of them is efforts by especially conservative Republicans to push down voter turnout. And the sort of thing about the rise of conservatism inside the Republican Party is that as they go up, they make many more efforts to do this. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I could say, let's look on the bright side, though. You know, so far we're not seeing any bills introduced anywhere to, let's say, corporations vote directly, right? I mean, they can just spend everything they want.
Give them time.
Yeah, this is a highly partisan business. I mean, there's a nice piece by two folks, Ben Tell and Aaron O'Brien, in Perspectives on Politics. They do a nice job, just real recent issue. They show you that in states especially prone to introduce legislation to cut back voting, they've got fairly heavy percentages of minority voters, places generally where minority voters had historically voted fairly high, and then, of course, Republican legislators and Republican governors. I don't want to give the Democrats a free pass. Back in American history, they've had plenty of cases where Democrats have colluded in this, and sometimes the local Democratic parties don't do much to contest it. But for sure, right now, the wave you're talking about, and it's definitely there. It's really probably now 8 or 10 years old, and accelerated hugely after 2010 in that when the Republicans took such control of state legislators. For sure, that's principally a Republican effort. And yeah, I mean, there are some things, and I think of the old quote about some things are obvious if you find like a trout in your milk, they've probably been watering it. This is where we're at with voting registration right now in the United States.
Yeah, and it's a grim one. I mean, and this has a long history, as you pointed out. And in the South, it was the Democratic Party up until World War II, by and large, and well, certainly until LBJ. and now it's the Republican Party. In fact, William Rehnquist, if I'm remembering correctly, back in the 1960s, made his chops, came to the attention of national Republicans because he used to stand at Native American polling places. He was a very tall man, very imposing man, and challenge Native Americans from their voting. I mean, it was just that's how you climbed in Republican politics in the 60s.
Look, that's right. Yep.
Do you see a pushback to this? There's this popular conception that 2012, the enormous minority turnout in 2012, was a consequence of it was a blowback against Republican voter suppression efforts. There's a counter narrative to that is that you had Barack Obama at the top of the ticket. Your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, I think that's plainly drove the minority, more specifically the African American turnout. But it also did not hurt that the Obama administration had picked up on the immigration issue just ahead of the polls. I mean, I actually was pretty critical of the Attorney General back before then. They were pretty slow to get on the legal challenge question of this. I mean, my reading of the Obama administration is they slept through the first 2.5 years or so of their administration before anybody paid any serious attention to this. They finally did belatedly get going. But yeah, but you notice too, though, that turnout overall went down from 2008, didn't go up. My memory is by about 3 percentage points or so. I'd worry a bit about 2016 just in general, just on pure sort of principle. But a lot of stuff. Obviously, if you get into a bigger economic crisis, and we may, for ordinary people, just be sliding. We're now effectively in our 6th year of no real rebound for the ordinary American. That kind of stuff can motivate people too. So predicting exact turnouts is hard to do, but the one thing I'll tell you for sure, you slap on requirements to show up with a birth certificate, or you do what North Carolina did, which is, you got to have a photo ID, but you know what? They won't take student photo IDs, and they won't take state worker photo IDs, which is pretty amazing.
Then you've got a really serious problem. Yeah. Thomas
well,
Ferguson,
you have it in look, North Carolina is now reaching Wilhelmine Germany. Let's be nice tonight.
Yeah.
Back in the 1890s or something.
We're running out of time.
This
here.
is crazy what's going on in North Carolina.